Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. Today we will discuss the FATF decision to keep Pakistan in the grey list. Pakistan has again escaped blacklisting by the Financial Action Task Force or FATF, which is a global watchdog on terror financing and money laundering. The 39-nation FATF reviewed Pakistan's case and announced that Pakistan will remain in the grey list, which means intense monitoring in connection with support to terrorism on its soil. The FATF had given Pakistan 27 tasks to complete, but it has completed only 21. Now the FATF has given Pakistan time till February 2021 to complete all the tasks. This leads to a question: is FATF giving a long rope to Pakistan? We will discuss this in the agenda today with two experts. We have with us retired diplomat Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar and retired Brigadier Dr. Vinod Datta. But before we start our conversation, let us have a look at this small report.
The Financial Action Task Force or FATF, which is global watchdog on terror financing and money laundering, has retained Pakistan in its grey list till February 2021. This means Pakistan continue to face intense scrutiny over the funding being provided for terror activities from the Pakistani soil. At a 3-day meeting, the 39-nation FATF reviewed Pakistan's compliance with the 27 tasks it was mandated to do by the watchdog in 2018. The FATF noted that Pakistan had completed only 21 tasks. It asked Pakistan to complete the rest by February 2021, while pointing out that all action plan deadlines had expired. The FATF said Pakistan needs to work on 4 areas to address its strategic deficiencies. Pakistan has been asked to demonstrate that law enforcement agencies are identifying and investigating the widest range of terror financing activity which target designated persons and entities, and those who act on the behalf, direction of the designated person or entities. It has to demonstrate that terror financing prosecutions result in effective, proportionate and dissuasive sanctions. Pakistan also has to demonstrate effective implementation of targeted financial sanctions against all designated terrorists and those acting for or on their behalf, preventing the raising and moving of funds, including in relation to non-profit organizations, identifying and freezing assets, and prohibiting access to funds and financial services. FATF also asked Pakistan to demonstrate enforcement against violation of terror financing sanctions of administrative and criminal penalties and provincial and federal authorities cooperating on enforcement cases. The compliance will be reviewed after February, and if FATF is not satisfied, Pakistan runs the risk of being blacklisted. And blacklisting will mean that Pakistan will not be able to receive aid or loan from international financial organizations like World Bank, IMF and Asian Development Bank. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Sajanhar and Brigadier Datta. Welcome to the program, sirs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My first question is to Ambassador Sajanhar. You know about FATF decision to give one more chance to Pakistan till February 21 to act on 6 remaining issues, 6 remaining tasks. How do you see this?
Pakistan has not been moved out of the grey list onto the white list because Pakistan had been trying very hard, very strenuously. It had initiated a number of moves, made a number of changes in its laws also domestically. Whether they would, at least on paper they had been changed, whether they would be implemented, that I think was a bigger question. It is a moot question and a big question mark there. But it had tried to do that, and then it had also employed a lobbying firm in Houston in the United States because it thought that if it was able to get the United States on its side, many other countries would also follow the United States. But all of this has not borne fruit. And as was expected that it would stay in the grey list, that has been done. Of course, India had moved for it to, had argued for it to be moved up to the blacklist because of its serious acts of support of terrorism in terms of whether it is the Pulwama attack last February in India or it is dropping arms, equipment and other material into Jammu and Kashmir. It's violations of the ceasefire on our border to push in terrorists and so on and so forth. So India wanted it to be pushed up to the blacklist, but it has been retained in the grey list. The argument basically is that if they have made progress, because last time when the meeting took place in February of this year, then it had complied only with 14 of the 27 stipulations. So now it has made the progress at least on paper. So that was recognized and realized by the FATF, and it said that it has made the progress, so it needs to be encouraged to progress. But some of the most important things, that is in terms of action to be taken against the terrorists which have been proscribed, which have been designated by the United Nations as terrorists, like Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, like Hafiz Saeed, like Masood Azhar, that no action has been taken against them. So this is one of the main aspects of the 6 conditions that have not been fulfilled. We'll have to see as to what is the sort of action that Pakistan is able or willing to take as far as these terrorists, Dawood Ibrahim also is concerned. And there is again a large number of other issues also.
Okay, now let me turn to Brigadier Datta. So as you heard, Ambassador Sajjanhar enlisting that terror activities or terror support is continuing in Pakistan. So do you think, as I asked in my opening, is FATF giving a long rope to Pakistan?
Ajay, good evening. Yes, I agree with you that the the time which has been given to Pakistan and the kind of dossiers which are available on these terror activities, terror funding, and the kind of terrorist growth which is taking place, it is quite evident, and I mean it requires no substantiation from any angle. But yes, knowing fully well that the entire world and particularly the Western Asia has been affected very badly by these terrorist acts, and the kingpin or the epicenter lies with Pakistan. So I find no reason why so much of time is being given, and when people are losing, you see the impact on India. You see, every third day we lose a brave heart in the act of terrorism. There are so many
Brigadier Datta, it's not only India. If you see the recent attack in Paris, the origins goes to Pakistan. So it is not only India which is affected; it's the entire world, in fact.
Yeah, and now you see this Azerbaijan conflict which is going on. I mean, people have openly come out that the mercenaries have been brought. They have been, given a contract of $1,800 a day, and Pakistan supporting overtly that they will be sending their terrorists there. I mean, the world community needs to take a very serious note of it, and there is no question of further relegating this issue. And they should have taken a decision, and Pakistan should have been pulled out to the blacklist. And fortunately, as you had predicted, Ajay ji, last time, Malaysia was not very, instrumental or, quite, vocal about it during this conference.
Only Turkey supported them this time.
Yeah, only Turkey supported it.
So I'll go back to Ambassador Sajjanhar as we discuss about long rope. As you mentioned about the 3 laws which recently they changed in September to, maybe I see it as hoodwinking the international community by Pakistan. So isn't it like as I asked Brigadier Datta, long rope being given and it's like Tariq pe Tariq, isn't it?
No, I would tend to agree with you, but then this is the way that the international organizations work. This is the way that international organizations operate. Because what the international organizations, and I think as the chair of the FATF, the current chair of the FATF, who's from Germany, he has also mentioned that we would like to encourage countries to abide by the laws, abide by the rules, and encourage them to achieve that. Now, you're very right in terms of the fact that, there is a lot of harm that is being perpetrated by Pakistan, whether it is, you mentioned Paris, Brigadier Datta mentioned Nagorno-Karabakh, and Pakistani terrorists going in support of Azerbaijan. Whether it is in Afghanistan also, it is the Pakistani support to the Taliban and to the Haqqani network and so on and so forth that is helping. But I think here it is also that none of the big countries also would like Pakistan to completely crumble and to go under. Because what would happen if it was to be put in a blacklist? It would not be able to receive any funding whatsoever. Even the $6 million that was to come from the International Monetary Fund, even that would not be forthcoming, let alone any money from IMF, from World Bank, from Asian Development Bank, from the European Development Bank. No money would come at all. As it is, the economic situation of Pakistan is very precarious. It is very serious. So if it was to be put in the blacklist, then it would really have its back to the wall. I think the big countries also, the United States, France, Germany, of course, China is completely supportive of Pakistan. So they also would not like Pakistan to completely crumble and its economy go to pieces. So they would like, because of its, because it has all the terrorists, it has the nuclear weapons and all this sort of thing. So to keep the pressure up, this is one way. And I think in the United States also it must have thought that getting it off into the whitelist does not help because, then the United States will not be able to apply any pressure whatsoever on Pakistan, which it needs the support for withdrawing its own forces from Afghanistan. And it needs that Taliban should, continue to be somewhat reasonable, at least on the negotiating table, and try to come to a peace deal. So I think different countries, for their own purposes, would have, always act to promote and safeguard their own interests. As far as India is concerned, you're very right that, for India, we would like it very much to be on the blacklist because of all its acts of aggression, all that terror it has been perpetrating against India. But then it is also about geopolitics, and it is also about how global institutions and organizations, they work and they operate.
So, Ambassador Sajanar, I'll ask you, the remaining task which FATF has asked Pakistan to implement is like prosecuting agencies. They have to demonstrate that prosecuting agencies are acting against those who are indulging in terror financing, and prosecution has to be taken to the logical conclusion. That means sanctions have to be demonstrated. So, do you think that it will happen in Pakistan?
I think to me, it appears very, very doubtful because, the Pakistan government as it is, it's based on the support of the Wahhabi element. Also, the army and the ISI itself is behind the support that is given to Jaish-e-Mohammed, Masood Azhar, Hafiz Saeed, etc. That is why they are able to roam freely on the streets of Pakistan with Kalashnikov, all their supporters, threatening terrorist action against India and, all in country. So I think it would be very difficult because taking action against such elements would mean that the Pakistan army as well as Imran Khan himself is succumbing to international pressure on these issues. So it will be very difficult. So we'll have to see as to what creativity it is to demonstrate, because what you mentioned about the laws that have been changed in September, that also it has been creative. It might be there on a piece of paper, but whether they are actually implemented on the ground and how they are implemented on the ground, I think that is something that has to be seen. And also, in the next meeting, Pakistan says it has met and complied with all the other 6 provisions also, then there is required to be visit of a team from FATF to determine and to satisfy themselves that all the actions that Pakistan says that it has complied with, they actually have been taken and are applicable on the ground. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a tall order. But
Right.
let's see how Pakistan tries to deal with it.
So I'll ask the same question to Brigadier Datta, because it will be like, I mean, ensuring that prosecution is acting is like ensuring that government itself is probing itself, isn't it, in Pakistan?
Ajay ji, I fully agree with Ashok Sajjanar ji that Pakistan is not going to take any steps. देखिए आप खुद ही अपने कॉज के या अपने जो जिस जुर्म के लिए जज हैं, तो आप क्या फैसला उनके हक में देंगे या किसी देश के हक में देंगे? आपने देखा होगा, you must have seen that people, they are prosecuted, they are sent to jail just before the review of FATF list
Right.
is being done, and they are, put into some jail like Kot Lakhpat या किसी और jail में, and then they are told to go out. If you go back,
No, then the
into
prosecution
history,
then the court will tell that we don't have evidence, so let him free, let him go.
Exactly. You see, there has to be a three-pronged approach which Pakistan has to follow, and the world, if you're calling FATF as a watchdog, I think they should do their job. There is enough evidence. Secondly, the fast track. I'm not saying fast track, in literal sense, but enough time has been given. If you see in June 18, they just start renaming the organizations or the tanzeems which you have. PRF came into being when it was, the grey list was being discussed in 2018. If you see in 1996 report of CIA, you see $16,000 were being given to Masood Azhar. So if you have, so what they have to do is they have to firstly curtail, the wallet, the will, and the recruitment. If you see the recruitment pattern in Kashmir, you see they recruited only 24 people in 2010. In 2015, it increased to 66. In 2016, 88. 2017, 126. It was a great jump. 2018, 218. That has been the highest. And that was post when the Pakistan was being discussed in June 28, in June 18 conference. In 2019, so far they have recruited 119 terrorists. So they are not, letting their guard go slow. They are going hell on leather with recruitment. You must have read the news that they are now putting those high-powered, these communication towers on the border,
Right.
so that they can communicate with these people, and not realizing that India, of course, has started working on those electronic counter and countermeasures, that we are going to use them to locate their training center. If you see the launch pads, the number has increased. If you see the traffic, whether it is in communication, whether it is people arriving, people getting trained, it has increased manifold. And in most of the teachings in the army, we have been always taking into considerations the Mujahideens, the other terrorist organizations, because they are going to use it as a substantial weapon to destabilize. You take the case of Al-Badr. You see,
Right.
since 1999, if you, it was totally defunct. Now there have been 6 cadres who have been recruited.
They are
There was
renewing,
one
reviving
incident-
it. They are reviving it.
Yeah, they are reviving it, and in connivance with China.
So
So
ambassador,
I'll not be
yeah,
I'll
Please.
not be surprised, Ajay ji,
Yeah.
if this terrorism is taken to Ladakh, and there are inputs that China is going to fuel these kind of activities in Ladakh, so that Ladakh region gets totally destabilized. Because when I was serving in the valley or in Ladakh also, I mean there was no terrorism that side.
there was
So
only
Al-Badr is
one
being-
terror incident in Ladakh. I remember one bomb blast.
Yeah,
That's all.
That's it.
So Ambassador Sajjanar, as Brigadier Datta mentioned about all the activities Pakistan is doing vis-a-vis India. So is it like the international community doesn't take cognizance of all such activities or is not bothered?
Let me put it this way. I think basically the international community, as you know, till 9/11, till 2001,
Right.
the international community always felt that this was an India-Pakistan issue. That this is a
Law and order issue.
that-
It was a law and order.
That you have to.
Yeah.
You have to deal with it yourself. Meaning it is, we are not really involved. It is only after 9/11, when the attacks took place on the World Trade Center towers, the Pentagon, and so on and so forth, that they realized that yes, terrorism is a big issue, and that India has been handling it from 1989 onwards just on its own. So even now, I think the international community would not like to get involved in a way more than what it is absolutely necessary. So, when we have to, let us say, get Masood Azhar designated as an international terrorist on the international fora, then you have countries like the United States, UK, France, they will come to your assistance, they will come to your support. But if it comes to, doing something on the ground, for instance, you see what is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh today. You have Azerbaijan that attacked Armenia on the 27th of September.
Right.
And there has been so much of damage, destruction, and there are terrorists that have gone, from Turkey. From Libya, they have taken the Al-Qaeda. From Syria, they have taken the ISIS.
And Pakistan is also there.
Pakistan, yes. From Pakistan also. Gulbuddin Haqmatyar is sending his own terrorists from Pakistan. Pakistan is sending there. So, this is an evil nexus, evil axis that has really emerged, of Imran Khan, Erdogan, and Azerbaijan, Aliyev, President Aliyev.
Right.
So, they have come together. Now, whether it is the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, or Macron, or Putin, they will keep on making statements. But no one really is interested in doing anything to ensure that ceasefire is brought into play. So, countries will...
No, I think they had called for ceasefire, but it was not implemented.
No, absolutely. But you see, if country like Russia, for which it considers, both Armenia and Azerbaijan to be its extended neighborhood, to be its near abroad, to be its sphere of influence, if it really wanted, it could definitely have put pressure on these two countries. Obviously, it has not been seen. They think that just making statements is enough for them, and let them keep fighting. And all countries have their own personal interests, whether it is Turkey or it is Iran or it is Israel or it is Pakistan. Everyone has its own interests. So none of them is interested in really coming in and trying to stop this conflict. Similarly, coming back to our own subject also, as far as Pakistan is concerned, well, we'd like to put some control over it. But it is basically India which is suffering because we have this huge both international border as well as the line of control with Pakistan. The other countries, you mentioned Pakistan, you mentioned Paris attack and so on and so forth, they are still far away. They don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
It is India which has to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Like with Pakistan, so also with China, 3,488 kilometer border. So, all the other countries in the Quad might make statements. But as far as India is concerned, we have to be a little more circumspect and a little more restrained when we speak about those issues.
Right. So, one last question to Brigadier Datta. As you heard Ambassador Sajanhar saying that every country has own interests. So, keeping that in mind, so is that hampering our cause, affecting our cause, that we should get Pakistan blacklisted or declared a rogue state or all those things?
Yes, Ajayji, it is high time that it is the, we must make a request to the world order that this Islamist insurgencies, all over, not only in our region, but all over, as Ashok Sajanarji had said, the sharp edge of violence is affecting the entire world. And where are we moving? You see, where are those international organizations? Everybody knows that, yes, there are 4 types of terrorists which are there in Pakistan. There were almost 4 million refugees which came to Pakistan. The Mujahideens which were trained by Islamic World, say about 20 to 30,000, they came back. the Taliban's which were churned out of the madrasas during Pervez Musharraf's time. Now they are playing havoc with the community. So there is an urgent need that the United Nations should have a peacekeeping force, and an independent body should monitor there, and a presence of a uniformed organization which can take action should be there, so that
but
we
United
can put an end.
But United Nations has become truthless body. They have sanctioned
Yes,
some
it is.
people and they are moving freely in Pakistan.
Yeah, and the world should take a cognizance of it, because it is not that they are there to enjoy the goodies of the world, and when it comes to delivering or taking any action, I mean they relegate their interest.
So unless
Ajay, can I make a
please,
comment,
please.
very brief comment?
Yeah, please.
I fully understand and I fully agree and appreciate what Brigadier Datta is saying. Let me put just two things. One is, as you mentioned very rightly, the United Nations is a toothless body. Even the Prime Minister said that there is a crisis of confidence as far as the UN is concerned in its 75th
Crisis of credibility.
year of its establishment.
Yeah.
And the second is that India has at all regional and global fora talking about terrorism and terrorism from Pakistan. So our pressure, we are not letting go in any way. So I think we will have to continue with this, and of course hope that things move in the right direction as far as Pakistan is concerned.
Okay, we hope that international community realizes the dangers that Pakistan is posing to the entire world, not only to India or South Asia. But thank you both of you for participating in this debate.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I will be back with another important topic on Monday. Till then, goodbye.